Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Not Defined by Endo. I am so privileged to be speaking today to Lily Jane Avery, a 19-year-old endometriosis warrior and advocate from Sydney, Australia. Lily was diagnosed with endometriosis at the very young age of 14, and she is one of the few who have had to carry this burden of a chronic disease at such a young age. Despite her early diagnosis, Lily was once told by her doctor to buy a coloring book to color away her pain. This only made her fight even harder to be heard. Lily is not a victim, oh no. Instead, she has embarked on the very important cause of advocating for and educating both young and old about endometriosis and letting people know that the pain is not in their head. Lily started an Instagram account called Endo, where she educates people on the various aspects of the disease. Remember that I am not a healthcare professional, so whatever I share on this podcast is to inspire and empower you to take control of your health and your bodies. Please always speak to your healthcare professional before making any major changes to your diet or lifestyle. With that said, sit back, relax, and let's have a listen to Lily's story. Okay, so let's jump right into our conversations today. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me today.
Absolutely.
So can you tell the audience a bit about who Lily is and why she's advocating and raising awareness about endometriosis?
Yes, my name is Lily and I'm 19 and I'm from Sydney, Australia. I'm in my second year of university and I got diagnosed with endometriosis when I was 14. I've decided to create this platform to spread awareness and advocate for endometriosis because I believe there's lack of knowledge, especially for girls that have just been diagnosed with endometriosis that are quite young. So I'm trying to be that big sister and support system for them.
That's amazing. So you mentioned that you were diagnosed at 14. Can you share how your life was prior to that? So what happened? What were your symptoms and what made you go out there and say you needed a diagnosis?
I was quite sick when I was around 13 and I kept getting stomach pain and I was in and out of hospital for about a year and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They kept saying that it was, a psychological problem or I was making up the pain. I went through a kidney biopsy because I thought I had IgA nephropathy. And it was when I finally saw a pediatric gyno. She was like, oh, I think we should, you might have endometriosis. At the time, I'd already been diagnosed with PCOS. So she thought, oh, yeah, we should do an exploratory laparoscopy and see what we find. And they found endometriosis. And when I was told that, I was just really scared and confused. And I'd never really heard of it before the surgery. So getting that big diagnosis at the age of 14 was really scary after being through a year of being told that, it was all in my head or I was making it up. It was clarifying to know that I had a diagnosis, but when I found out that this would affect the rest of my life, I wasn't exactly thrilled. And being at that young age of 14, I don't really know how I reacted to it. And I don't think I was if I was older, I think I would have had a better understanding of how to cope with it.
Yeah, I think even for people who are diagnosed at older ages, like in their 30s, they still struggle to grapple with that diagnosis because the thing is, it's usually bittersweet because you're happy that you have an answer now, you know why you're in so much pain. But then the other thing is that there's no cure. So it's like, this is
Exactly.
what the rest of your life is like. And no one has definite answers. Everyone is like, maybe this is the treatment will offer you, or maybe it will work, maybe it won't. So yeah, so I can understand how being 14, that must have been really, really, really scary for you. So what treatments were you offered? So once you got diagnosed with endometriosis, first of all, were you told what stage it was, what organs it impacted and all of that? Were you given enough information to truly understand what was wrong? And also, what treatments were you offered?
So no, I wasn't told the first surgery what stage it was because the first gyno that did the surgery didn't go in deep enough. So I ended up having to have surgery 6 months later with a different doctor who then diagnosed me with stage 4 endometriosis. So the first laparoscopy, she basically didn't clear it all out, and there was more in there, and it was kept growing. I was offered, from the first gyno, I was offered treatments of the going on the pill, getting an IUD, which they call a Mirena in Australia, and all of these big things for a 14-year-old to have to decide. And I didn't really love the idea of having a metal copper IUD inside of me at such a young age. And it was the exact same options with my second surgery. It was, go on the pill, different forms of the pill, because there's lots of different brands, and yeah, those were the two big ones, the either go on the contraceptive pill or to have an IUD.
Wow, okay. And do you mind sharing which of the options you went with?
So I'd already been on the pill since I was 13. So I continued on with the pill and just decided to add pain management on top of that. But it didn't, obviously, it wasn't very effective and kept actually making it a lot worse than it was.
Okay, so pain management, would you say that's just using painkillers, or were you offered things like pelvic therapy or anything like that?
I wasn't offered pelvic therapy. I was offered really strong opioids, which, being the age of 14, I don't think it's great to be prescribing codeine and endone. And I don't like opioids. I react really badly to them, to the point where I wouldn't want to take them even if the pain was that bad. So I think just shoving, the patient with drugs isn't always the answer, because it's more than beyond the drugs. It's how your whole life can change to help the endometriosis and the pain that comes with it.
Yeah, I agree with you that just shoving, medication onto the patients is a terrible idea. Because same for me, I was always on painkillers as well. So I was using ibuprofen for so long, and no one ever said, actually, don't take this all the time, or just find a way to minimize it. But that was kind of my go-to. So I'm sure you're aware that during your periods, you are literally on the floor, you're unable to eat,
Exactly.
you're throwing up, and then you're taking medication. So that also affects. So just to share a quick one of mine, that affected my tummy as well. And in fact, it exacerbated my symptoms because I used to have so much pain, whether and then it carried on outside of the period. So the medication started causing my tummy, I think the acids to just burn down my tummy walls and things like that, and I had gastritis. So I think you're right that that's not all. There's so many things that have to be offered to the patients, because just using those medications, especially in that state where you haven't eaten anything, so there's even nothing in your tummy to maybe provide protection and all of that, they should definitely be talking about it a bit more. So I started telling everybody, do not use ibuprofen on a regular basis. Try and I know that mefenamic acid, which is one of the ones we are also offered here, and opioids and all of that are, a lot of people get really dependent on them and then they stop working. So there's so many other things that we need to look into to improve our quality of life apart from surgery. So the treatment you're on right now, I know you mentioned that you were on the pill, but right now, what treatment are you currently on?
So currently I'm on Zoladex monthly injections, which is putting my 19-year-old body into medically induced menopause. At the moment, it is calming my endometriosis. However, the side effects of the Zoladex injection, like menopause, is quite drastic. I'm getting hot flushes, I get brain fog. It's definitely changed me as a person with my mood swings. So I don't really know at this point whether the injection is better or the pain is better. So it's definitely finding that balance. And the fact that I have to have an injection every month until I have a baby is a little bit concerning, and definitely not normal for someone of my age.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. And that's true. That's a tough place to be, where you actually are wondering which one's better, just stay on in pain or stay on a medication that gives you so many side effects, including the long-term effects that you're not even told about. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. And I hope things get better for you as time goes on.
Yes, me too.
Do you get anything else offered to you, like maybe lifestyle changes, dietary changes? any of those things? Did you have anyone guiding you in that way, or did you have to find it all out yourself?
I was really in the dark about it all, and I think myself and my mum had been doing a lot of research at home, thinking, what can we do to help, because the painkillers are actually causing more side effects than than needed. I asked my gynecologist at the time, and he said to me, "Oh, just Google the endometriosis diet." And so that I was like, I'm 14, I have no idea what's going wrong with my body, I've been shoved a junk load of drugs, and then you just tell me to Google a diet, which I think any female should know you shouldn't be Googling diets from the get-go. So I had no idea what to do. And it was just trial and error, and I would try some things and it would make it worse, and I was just in the dark, and I had no one to go to, or there was no website or anything that just says, hey, this will help, or this wouldn't. Like, I really needed that support.
Oh, sorry about that. I kind of have the same experience, in the sense that I also had to do a lot of research on my own. And, people say the endometriosis. In fact, there was one time I posted something online about anti-inflammatory diets, and one of my online friends, she was like, FYI, vegetables actually make me bloated and cause me so much pain. And I was like, oh my God, that's so horrible, because I mean, that's what everyone says to go to. So if you're having troubles with vegetables, then that's a big deal, because what do you do then? So just sharing the story to say, yes, there's not one endometriosis diet. The main thing is, we know that there are inflammatory, foods, and because endometriosis is an inflammatory condition, that we need to do all we can to kind of bring down that inflammation. But there's no, as much as we know the foods that maybe could help or the foods to avoid, everyone needs to go through their own journey and understand what works for them and what doesn't. And that's what everyone needs to know. So yeah.
There's no set rules.
Exactly. Yes. But are there any particular diets, or I don't want to say the word diet, but
I know.
foods that you eat, or things that help you with your symptoms?
I would say for me, avoiding red meat was really great. I found that was a big inflammatory thing for me. Focusing on really there's a Mediterranean kind of, not diet, but like lifestyle, where it's all like, very low inflammatory foods. I found that helped. And I think now, because I'm, older than 18, I think alcohol is something I should be avoiding, because it does give that horrible, like I call it, the endo bloat, which all the endo community wouldn't hear of. That's something that really does upset my stomach. Yeah.
Okay. I think for me, dairy is one of the things that I can tell has a bad effect on me. So almost immediately after having dairy, I can feel my tummy being like all dodgy. Yeah. And then I try to avoid gluten as well. For recently, I haven't succeeded as much ever since the pandemic, and just wanting to eat and being at home so much. But I remember that when I started going through this journey, and I was trying to eliminate things that I thought were not, probably, like in the community, everyone was saying, try and do these things as much as you can. And I tried to avoid gluten, dairy, red meat for a while, and I tried to go organic. Another thing I tried to do was get rid of as much plastic usage as possible. I don't know if you've heard of, the fact that plastics they can create kind of estrogenic effects, and they are kind of bad for us. So those are some of the things I also started trying to look into. And then one thing I try to do is not just eliminate, but try to fill back, that gap or that hole. Because I try to eat more vegetables, more fruits, more seeds, so like chia seeds, hemp seeds, and things like that. But it's actually stressful sometimes, keep thinking about all this. Yeah,
it is. And especially when you're in pain, I think you don't exactly want to eat. Well, I mean, maybe that's just me. You don't really want to eat like a bowl of veggies. Like, you just want to like lie in bed and be like,
I
So it is
know.
hard. And I think the other one that I have been really conscious of over the years, and probably starts from when I had PCOS, is the sugar aspect as well. I found
Oh
that when
yeah.
too much sugar, my endo would be like, what are you doing to me? So yeah, that's another one. But it's interesting. I tolerate dairy quite fine. So it is
Okay.
definitely person to person of, and there's no set, yes and no, and it really affects the individual differently.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Is there anything else outside of nutrition? So, in terms of exercise, I know that many of us are in so much pain that we can really bear to exercise so much. But, a lot of people talk about yoga, deep breathing exercises, and things like that. Do you have anything that helps you with coping when you're in pain?
I think for me, what I do to cope best is actually walking. I found walking is my choice of exercise. I'm
Okay.
not a huge yoga fan. Well, not fan. I don't really do yoga.
Yeah.
But I definitely find walking helps. I used to do a lot of like running and dance when I was younger, and I found that when I got diagnosed with endo, the thought of running actually makes me feel physically sick. Like that
Oh,
just
wow.
doesn't that I think would be really harsh. But yeah, definitely walking, gentle bike riding. I still enjoy a dance when you actually can go out, but um, definitely the pain changes how you feel and how your motivation is around exercise. Because some days, getting out of bed and actually getting out of my pajamas is enough for the day.
Yeah, agree. Okay, so you're young and you're in this endo world, endo community, and I would say you're one of the few who got diagnosed in way less time than the average person with endometriosis, because we know that many of us get diagnosed after 7 to 10 years from when we start
Mm.
having our symptoms, which is horrible. But this means you spent most of your life knowing that you have a disease you can't run away from. And this is what I was saying earlier about bittersweet. So that's the bittersweet aspect of endometriosis. So how would you say this knowledge or this situation, I would say, has affected your mental well-being? How have you been able to cope with knowing that you have something that right now there's, well, no cure? There are ways to live with it, but it's tough to know this from a young age. So how has it been for you?
I think I agree with you. I definitely think it was a bittersweet moment when I found out that I had it. Because before, one of the doctors said that she suggested that I should get a coloring book to color away my endometriosis pain, which I didn't really love the thought
Really?
of. Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's like my one famous line. I was told to color away the pain. This was in between my two surgeries because of the pain. She said, "Yeah, you shouldn't be having this much pain. Maybe she should get a coloring book. Like maybe it's all in her, maybe yes, she's got it, but the pains on top is actually a lot in
Oh
her
my.
head." So yeah, so definitely
Okay.
it is clarification. I think mentally it's very scary, especially for someone so young. I mean, I was around my friends who were, we just started high school and it was all about, being young. And I'm thinking, can I have kids? And that's something, and even today I'm like around my friends and I'm like, yeah, they're not worrying about anything. And I'm thinking, where I am in my life, I'm planning, to have kids. Can I have kids?
Hmm.
It's the day-to-day management. It's trying to explain to people why I can't come out today because I'm
Hmm.
in bed crying in pain.
Yeah.
It's and I also think when I was at school and I would have surgeries or if I was in pain, it is a bit of the broken arm logic, because no one can see endometriosis. Sometimes people forget and don't really understand why you're in pain, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Hmm.
Whereas if you have a broken arm and they see the cast, they can connect that it is, you're
Yeah.
actually quite sick.
Yeah.
So I think that was quite hard to explain because I look fine and I look like a happy, healthy young girl, but my insides are definitely the opposite of that.
Yeah. That's tough. That's, I think many of us have that feeling. There's that phrase, but you don't look sick, that everyone
Mm.
talks about. It even became a hashtag at some point, and we all feel the same. Like, just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean that we're not in pain, and the only way we can survive is actually to try and live normal lives. If this is our reality, for for like the rest of our lives, until maybe miraculously we get a cure, or if some of the treatments work, definitively. But yes, it's quite tough on the mental health, and I think you're so brave for reaching out and not just cowering in fear or in sadness, and deciding that endometriosis will not make a victim of you, but instead you're reaching out to people your age, the younger people who might not even know that this exists, and you're talking about it to them. So that's really amazing. So let's talk about your page, your Instagram page, Over Endo. And I know you're raising awareness to young people. What is your mission, and what is your like guiding principle or a vision, or what would you like to see in 10 years using your page, for example?
I think my mission and vision for my page Over Endo is to really spread awareness of the disease, and especially to reach out to the girls that have just been diagnosed, whether they be 14, 20 or 41. I think I was really in the dark when I got diagnosed, and I think having a community like this or a page to look at and read would have been really helpful to answer the questions that doctors don't really have the answers to or understand. I would really like to go on TV in Australia and to spread the word of endo. I think there's definitely lack of it, especially for the younger generation. I think if you asked a 14-year-old what endometriosis was, they'd just look at you being like, what are you saying? So I definitely think just spreading and reaching out and try to be that big sister for the girls and women that have endometriosis.
Oh, that's amazing. That's an amazing mission, and I wish you all the best. And I hope that you definitely reach out to millions of women that need you, because they definitely do. So, is there anything, if for a girl who feels like she's having extreme period pains more than her friends and her colleagues, what would you say, what would your advice be in terms of the path to take? So what should the girl do? Someone who knows nothing about endometriosis, for example, say she just knows that she's having period pains, or she just started her periods and it's quite painful. What is your advice, or what would you say are the steps?
My advice for a situation like that would be to record, and track your period, to make note of your symptoms and how often you're getting them, and then go to a doctor and get a referral to a gynecologist, and especially a pediatric gynecologist if they are of a child's age. And I think the main thing about when you go and see these doctors is to present and bring the evidence of, here are my symptoms, here's my period, this is not right, I'm getting too much pain, something needs to happen. And if that doctor isn't going to listen or isn't the right match for you, I wouldn't be afraid to get a second opinion. And that would probably be my biggest advice, is to find someone that really gets you, because in the long run, you're going to be stuck with someone dealing with you, not just for now, but for the rest of your life, basically, because as we've talked about, there is no cure for endometriosis at the moment. So it's definitely something you need to manage with your doctor and to kind of build a support team.
Oh, that is amazing advice. I love what you said about first getting evidence, because what I've seen now is that, and I have been talking about it as well, is go to your doctor armed with information, and that makes them know that you know what you're talking about. And the second thing you mentioned about finding someone who believes in you and not being afraid to get a second opinion is so, so important, because I've seen lots of women just stuck with their doctors because they're afraid to question and to, talk about what they're reading about or what they're hearing on social media, because just being afraid that the doctor is a person of authority. But while that is true in a lot of scenarios, it's good to also know that you have a decision, or you have a say, in your health, really. So thank you so much, Lily. This has actually
Thank
been
you.
very nice. It's been so good to
Oh.
talk to you. I'll tell everyone about Over Endo and the amazing work you're doing, and hopefully people will reach out to you as well for help, for advice, just for
Thank
someone
you.
to talk to. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it all.
Oh.
Being diagnosed with endometriosis can be bittersweet.
But as we continue to share our stories, we continue to realize that we are never alone, and together, one way or another, we will beat this disease. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love to know. Send me comments or even a DM through my Instagram or Facebook page. Share with your friends and subscribe to the podcast. And if you have any questions to ask or topics you would like me to discuss, feel free to shoot me an email on info@notdefinedbyendo.com. I love to hear from you all. And all of this information is in the show notes. Until next time, my name is Teniola, and remember, you are not defined by Endo.